Hi guys, it's Karen and I'm back to finish up making our cupcake dolls. We'll move on to the head. So what I did was I took the 2-inch little foam ball, the smooth foam ball, and I cut a piece of nylon, and I don't measure it, but if I would say about 4 or 5 inches of the tube of one of the nylons, and put the ball inside of there, and then I just put a dab of glue and draw it up, pinch it in, dab of glue, draw it up, pinch it in until it's all in place. You could use small elastic band if you have it. You could stitch it if you want. That's just what I did, and it works. And this is all going to be covered with hair, so it's not a big deal. And then you want to bring your nylon down and pull it nice and tight, and you want to give it a good twist so that it comes down nicely over the ball. These balls are not perfect, and so you'll want to look at yours to see where the smoothest part is, where you'll want to have the face, and then keep that in mind. I just take 2 pieces of cotton thread and I wrap it around several times and I tie it off. And don't ask me why I use such a short piece of thread. I have no idea. I wasn't thinking, I'll tell you that, because it's way easier to use long pieces of thread and then cut them off. Be careful when you're working around with this nylon. It's really easy to poke your scissors in it and snag it or rip it, and then you got to start all over again, especially once you get working on it. You hate to do that. Now I have a little snag in this nylon. It happens to be the absolute only piece of nylon I have left, and it's actually quite a dark color compared to the other one. Probably wouldn't have been my first choice, but I wanted to get this video done, so be it. She's going to have darker skin, this little girl. I feel that this is a nice part, looks good. There's no snags in the nylon. There's a few little marks on the ball, but not any different from anywhere else. You're not going to find perfection. The nylon helps to smooth out some of the imperfections that are on these styrofoam balls. So what you want to do is you want to gather up. I used, for the collar, you use about a 1.5 inch piece of lace, 16 inches long, about. And I used this same lace that I had used on the edge of the skirt here when I had sewn it on. I like the look of it. It has a bit of shine, sparkle to it. I thought it would be pretty as a collar. And so what you want to do is you can take your piece of nylon. That's why I take a longer piece than what I actually need, because it allows you something to hold on to, and you thread your little head through your collar. Now we're going to start the hair. The hair is the most difficult part. I used a fine yarn with a bit of mohair in it for this doll's hair. I don't have any more of it. I wasn't planning on going any further than making one and done was my plan. And then I was asked to do a tutorial, and I'm like, oh, okay, well, what can I use for hair? You can use different things. You can use, if you have a piece of a fuzzy scarf, you could cut a piece and shape it to her head for hair. You could use this doll hair that I know I have this in my stash. I've had it a long time. I used to use it to do my angel's hair. It's not my favorite to work with, and so I didn't really want to use that. So what I had in my stash was this white yarn. It's an acrylic yarn, but it has, I hope you can see it on the camera, it has a sparkle thread through it. I purchased it to make part of a Christmas gift for someone a couple years ago, and I still had a little bit in my stash. So I thought, you know what, I'm going to use that. And I will show you exactly what I did to wrap the yarn around the ball, and then what I did to make the big poof on the top of her head, which actually turned out, but it wasn't the plan. It didn't go as planned. So sometimes things don't go as planned, and you just have to roll with it. You don't want to use very much glue because you're going to end up with a big gluey mess. So I start with some glue on the side of the head. This is the side of the face here. And what I want to do is I want to do a bit of a wrap like what you see I've done on this little doll. So I've gone across her head with wraps of the yarn to create kind of this V in the front here, and then the hair comes down and goes down the sides of her face and then builds to the back of her head, and then I attach the big huge bun on top. You want to stay in front of this area here for the front to shape your face. It's going to give you your guidelines. So again, a tiny little bit of glue, because otherwise what's going to happen is this is just going to keep falling down in front of your face and you're not going to get anywhere, and it's going to get frustrated. So there, what I've done by just doing those two little dots is I've done a bit of a frame on her face, and that's what you want to do. Now this isn't, you know, carved in stone, because you can come back with another little bit of thread and go in front of that to shape it a little bit more, but you need to start somewhere. So start with coming up to the front here in front of your, where you've collected your nylon, and go down to the sides approximately, I would say, if you're thinking about it, where kind of just in front of where her ears might be, and that will give you the start. And then what I do is wrap one side at a time. So I just go around the back. And again, because you have this collar on here and it's going to come up, and you're going to be tucking this up here and gluing it. Don't worry about, oh, well, that looks weird because it looks like hair is growing on her neck or anything like that. Don't worry about that, because that sorts itself out. That's minor compared to some of the difficulties you may run into. So I'm going to go along the back, and then I'm going to continue wrapping on this side. So again, I'm going to put a tiny bit of glue there just because I want this piece of yarn to stay put. The finer the yarn you use, the more you're going to run into difficulties using the glue, because the more you're going to have, even the tiniest little spot is going to be there wanting to glue onto anything that comes near it. So I am going to continue wrapping. I already changed what I said. Now I'm going to come across the top, and I'm just going to keep on wrapping on this side of her head. I find that if you try and keep going the same way, for me, it just didn't work. So you do what works for you. If you figure out a different way, power to you. So I'm just wrapping around this side of her head. I'm not adding any glue at this time, and I'm coming around shaping this side of her head. So I try not to overlap them too much, because I find that when you're looking from the side of the doll, the more you overlap these, the kind of funnier it looks, especially if you use a thicker thread. So kind of keep them together. And again, you can still come and wiggle them in between so that you can kind of shape that piece in the front to where you might like to have it. And you can come back in the front with an extra round if you think, oh, I want that a little closer to her face, which I've decided I do. So I've come a little closer. And now this one, I'm gone over the top. So you can see with putting these strands in here, I'm creating more of a V at the top here and shaping her face. What I think her face would be is right in here. I'm going to continue going around. I'm pretty happy with how that looks there. So now I feel like there's enough strands here. I feel like this is thick enough here. This strand here is bugging me a little bit, so it's going to cross over the other ones. So I put a dab of glue in there, and I just lay the strand in there and give it a little pat. Again, as little glue as possible, guys, because otherwise you're going to have glue all over the strand, and you're going to have glue all through the hair. So this next time around, I'm going to come up and I'm going to go to the back, and I'm going to switch directions so that I can work on the other side of my head. So I'm going to go down, and I'm just going to go to here again, put a tiny little bit of glue. I'm going to lay the thread over the top of it, let it catch hold, and now I'm going to work on this side. Now again, whoops. And if any of the strands are moving too much, that's where you add glue. So this strand here wants to move into her face. So I'm just going to see, no, I'm not going to like that because then it's going to separate. So I'm going to put a tiny dot of glue. With my glue gun, often what I do is I'll bring the glue to the tip and then I'll touch it there and that's it. So I've already let my finger off the trigger. It just came to the tip and then I let my finger off the trigger and I get such a tiny little dot of glue, but it's the perfect amount. And so what I did there was I secured that thread that kept wanting to slide onto her face because I want it to stay on the side of her face. Okay, so let's work on the other side. So at the back here, we can change directions because it's no big deal. And I'm going to come across this way. And it doesn't matter what's going on up here because part of your ponytail or your bun or whatever you're going to do is going to cover up here anyway. So don't worry about that. So this end here, I want to have it a little more secure down there. So I'm just going to push it in underneath because you don't want things getting in your way either. Okay, so I'm going to go down and I'm going to go right in front of those ones there and around to the back. And I'm going to come up. And I'm going to go along the ones on this side. So I'm going to continue creating it to the back as I did on this side. But I'm going to come around to this side and go in here and create this. And then I'm going to go around the back. And so I'm probably going to find that I'm going to need a little dot of glue there because as I come down there, that's not going to want to lay in place like it should. So a little dot of glue and then up and around I go. If you, like I said, if you figure out a different way that you want to do the hair, by all means, do whatever works for you. This is the only thing that I found worked for me. So again, I'm coming along, I'm wrapping the strands there, I'm going along the back and I'm coming up again. And I just want to fill in this area here where I did the initial shaping line to get me going. Because you got to start somewhere, right? And so this is crossing over on the top of her head. And you can see it's filling in really nicely. I'm getting a really nice pattern there. Almost could be like a braided pattern in someone's hair. Like it could be a real thing. So, and then coming down, and again, I want to fit that one right in there. So I'm going to again do my little dot of glue on the tip of my gun, and then I'm releasing the handle and I'm dotting that glue there. So I've got that little bit of glue and I'm going to slide that thread right in there. And this yarn does look really pretty because look at that sparkle that you get off of there. So it really is pretty, like it does work. And this is not an expensive yarn. This is an acrylic yarn with a sparkle in it. And I can't remember the brand or anything, but I know I bought it on Amazon and I know it's not going to cost you a lot if you decide that this is the yarn that you like. And again, try and keep your threads. And what you can do with yarn is you just kind of push it a little bit with your fingers and push it down and it'll slide into place and then you can push it together. But I mean, hey, you can see her scalp a little bit between. That's not the end of the world either, unless it is for you. And then you'll have to figure that out. Now these ones want to slide. They're sliding towards the back of her head. They're not staying in place. So again, I'm going to do that little dot of glue, release the handle, push that on there, and then push these over so that they're staying in place. And you know, I'm pretty happy with that. Got a nice shape on her face. Is it perfect? Probably not, because you know, I tend to be really hard on myself when I'm creating things. And for me, I can see, oh, I don't think this is quite right or whatever. But you know what? That's something I have to work on. So I'm going to bring this over, this little one, I'm going to slide it over a little bit, and I'm going to continue to bring this one down here. Again, squeezing on the glue gun, but you can see it stays on the end, even when you let go of the trigger. And honestly, that's all the glue you need. So wipe that in there, swipe it in there, and pull that piece of hair down. It's hair now. It's not yarn anymore. Coming down to the bottom here, I want to secure this in place at the back here. So again, a little bit of glue. I'm not worried as much at the back if I, squeeze it a little bit more than I did before, because at the back is not as big an issue. The reason I put the collar on, and some people might say, well, why do you put the collar on? Initially, I didn't with my first doll either, but I found that it was harder to gauge my hair if I didn't have this collar in place. Because with the collar, I can see that it rests up underneath her chin, because when she's attached, this is gonna come right up, and I can see how my hair is looking. So if that feels cumbersome to you, or you don't like to do it that way, then by all means take the collar off. Have a look, take the collar off. But I just found it really helped me in placing my hair. And I found the hair really challenging. And I think part of it is because I'm too darn fussy. There I have her whole, I feel like her face is shaped. I kind of like how the part's a little bit off to the side. I don't want it to be exactly in the middle of her head necessarily, but if it ended up there, oh well, that would be okay too. And I like it. Now, if you decided that you wanted less of her face showing, then you would add more strands down the front. But I think I'm happy, and I think I should stop while the going's good. I want to fill this in a little bit on the back, because her ponytail may not, or her bun may not fall exactly as I hope, and I'm going to end up with a bald spot. And even though, most of us have them, you don't maybe want it on your doll's head. So a little bit of glue and press that into place. And a little bit of glue and press that into place. And if you get a little bit of glue drying on the end of your threads like that, then just nip it off before it becomes an issue. And I'm just going to keep on doing this and fill this hole in, because I know that was an issue when I didn't completely finish off the back of the head on this other doll, is I really had to fiddle with my bun and everything to get it to cover everything on her head, because I didn't know how big to make the bun. And when you see how I made it, once I'd made it, it was made, and I had to live with what I had, and it wasn't quite long enough, because her head, was a little bit bigger than I had made. I saw this, actually it was another YouTuber, and I'll try and remember to link her channel, that she makes angels, and she made this, what she called a doll wig. And that's what I was making, but I'm used to making them for a 1-inch doll head, and this is a 2-inch. And it makes a big difference, because you just have to kind of guess as to how much longer you might like it. So just pinching that into place. I know that when I put my wig on, I always start it in front of that collected area of nylon there. So I know that even if I have a little space there, that's going to get covered, because that's where the wig starts. But again, just going to push that a little bit forward on there into that glue, and just make that go into place. And then a little bit more glue here, and I'm just trying to lay this in the glue, and sometimes it grabs hold of your hand and doesn't want to stay put, so you just kind of have to go slow with this and see where it takes you. But I found that this was the easiest way to fill in the back of the head than any other method for using a yarn type hair. She looks a bit, I thought when I was making it, she looks a bit like she's got a towel wrapped around her head right now, which is kind of cute, It's a cute look. But I have to say, I really liked the big updo when I finally got it right, because it took me a long time. And that's why when I was asked to do a tutorial, I was like, oh, I don't know. I can do the dress and everything. That's not a problem. It's that hair. I don't even know if I want to try and do that on camera. Now you can see here I have a bit of glue strings that were attaching themselves, and I wanted to cut them, and then because it wasn't attached, so the whole thing started to lift. So yeah, there's things can happen. Believe me. Best of intentions. I think for the most part, I've probably got this covered enough. I think that I'm hoping that the ponytail I have planned for this one, or the bun, I'm not exactly sure how this is going to turn out because it's different yarn, and I just don't know if it's going to go the same as the other one. So I just want to play it safe and cover the back of her head. And I understand that this is probably boring, and when I'm looking back on it, I may just fast forward parts of this. I'll try not to make it too painful for you. Okay, I think I'm good. And I had guesstimated and pulled off a bunch of yarn off the ball. I just didn't want to have to play with the whole ball of yarn. But there's lots of opportunity as you're doing this to be able to add in yarn, and I would just do it at the back and just put a dot of glue and add in a strand if you need to add more, and go for it. Okay, so there she is. She's got her little turban hair on. Okay, so this is the wig, and this is the part that I'm scared about because I just don't know if this is gonna work. This is how this girl shows how she makes these wigs. And what she does is she takes this is a 6x4 index card. And so you can just take a piece of cardboard if you want, 6x4, and she wraps the yarn around it. So I wrapped this, I counted it, I wrapped 60 times around this card. I went down and then I sort of wrap back and back again, somewhere around there, and it worked out to about 60 times. Then you take it to the sewing machine, and if you don't have a sewing machine, this is the part where I'm not really sure. I guess you can try and hand sew it, but you're sewing right through the cardboard and the threads on the back completely. This is how the wig is made. And then what you have to do is you have to rip the card out. So whatever you're using inside of here, don't make it very heavy, because it makes it really, really hard. It's really easy to rip the index card, and that's why I would probably, use something like an index card, the same weight. And then all I did was tear it down, and in between, I reached in and tore it apart. It tears pretty easily because it's been stitched through. So I don't know if you've ever stitched on fabric or stitched on paper, but it tends to rip very easily along that stitch line because, of course, the needle has perforated it, and it's made it like a perforated edge, basically. So you go in there and you rip out your card on that side. Shows when she does it, she stitches straight down the middle. I found that I wanted the top of her hair to be a bit longer, so I stitched off to the side. So I stitched at about 1.5 inches in from this edge. You have to rip this out of here. And sometimes it sticks and you really have to pull. And other times a whole bunch will pull out real quick. You can see that there's the perforation there, and then it's just caught right here. So I'm just giving that a pull. Okay, there's the last bit. There we go. Okay, so all the cardboard is out. I did have to tear it into a lot of pieces, so don't be surprised if you have to do that. And here's your doll wig. The way the wigs work is they go onto their heads with the line that you've sewn. that goes around their head. Just that line goes just in front of that area where you collected all the nylon together. And I backstitched on the edges, and if you're going to hand stitch, do really tiny stitches and backstitch on your ends or tie a knot off so that it's secure, because it's just going to fall apart on you and it's just disappointing, right? So you want to find the middle. That's a really good thing to do first. So fold it in half and get your center, and that's what's going to be at the top of your head here, and right in front of that, not that bulge of nylon. So that's what I'm meaning about you're never going to see that. I'm coming around the sides, always keeping the part you've sewn, that's what you would be gluing, and you're going to glue it down to this side, and you're going to glue it down to this side, and it's basically going to come all the way around to the back of her head. And then what you do is you flip this back. So I'm going to put a little bit of glue right here at the top. I am going to take the center of my wig, that's what I'm calling this, is a doll wig, and I'm going to place that right on that stitching line or right in that glue. And I'm going to make sure that that is good and adhered before I move on, because rushing this part is not to your advantage at all. So don't. And at this point, you really don't need the ruffle on there, so we'll just take that off for now. Okay, so I've attached it at the top, and then it comes down the sides like that and around to the back. Down the side and round to the back. Okay, I'm going to go with a line of glue down the side, and again, the stitching line goes into the glue, just the stitching line. And I have a funny, I'm not going to worry. This is a funny little, I don't know what happened there, so I'm just going to leave that because I don't need to fuss about that right now. I'll figure it out at the end. And then again, right to the back, and the same on this side. I want to go down the side of her face, so down the side and into the back. And again, it's the line of stitching is going down the side, and into the back. Just the stitching. All your little rest of your wig is all free flowing here. We don't want it getting caught up in the glue. So again, make sure it is adhered before you start fiddling with anything else. So I can see here, this is actually part of the stitching, and I'm going to press that into the back, because that's the only way that you get any structure with the wig, is that that line has to be glued down. So now I can start playing and figuring out how this hair is going to turn out. Okay, I'm back, and we finished off that we were gluing the wig on, and we glued the seam all the way along to the back, and then we have the long hair here, and we have the hair here. So now the next step we have to do is, starting at the back, we need to gather these loops up so we can form our bun slash pony. I'm not exactly sure what we're going to end up with. It just depends. I think it's going to be a bun, because I can see by the length of these that by the time we get them gathered up, that there it's going to be more of a, it's going to come like the other one did and be a bun. You'd have to, I guess, wrap it on a wider than a 4-inch wide piece of cardboard, and make sure it's lightweight enough that you can rip it away from that stitching in order to be able to make maybe a long ponytail style. So what I'm doing here is I'm just taking a darning needle and the matching yarn that's in the hair, and I'm gathering up these loops, and I'm just trying, when you go through, to not pierce the loops, but to go actually through them. And they are all a little bit disorganized. They're not perfect, you know, the way that they're here. So you just go through them the best you can. Kind of push them up, see how they're going to lie, and then go through them that way. Because, like I said, some of them are not lying completely straight, or they're overlapped over the next one. It's just the way that you wrapped it on the card. And this, of course, is my rendition of the wig, because with hers, she pulled it all up and gathered it all up together, but I can't get it to do that. I think it's because of the not having the size of the card at the right ratio yet, and that's just something I'm going to have to work on, and I haven't figured that out yet. So until I do figure that out, we end up with the hair is not exactly the right length for the 2-inch size ball here. And I'm not exactly. Okay. So let's just see here. I want to be right at the back, and somehow I overlap the yarn. So let's just pull this back, scoot these through here. And then we should have our loops all gathered up. And so I'm gonna just take a knot, tie a knot here now, and pull them up. So yeah, so what's happening, what this causes is that it causes her hair to look like when you pull it into a bun. You know, you pull your hair back, and then you have these top loops that come down. I played with her hair for a long time to get it exactly how I wanted it. This a little bit more now that I've adjusted some of them. So I'm just, that loop that I ran through, I'm just tightening it up. And there you go. You can see it's starting to form better. They're never going to lay like nice and smooth. With this one, because I was working with a mohair type yarn, it was a little finer, so I kind of pushed them here and there a little bit more. This being a thicker yarn, you get a slightly different look to the hair, but that's okay. You know what? That's something, like I said, the hair is something that you're going to have to play with. Okay, I'm going to tighten this up as tight as I can pull it, because I think it's better, and I'm going to tie it in a knot, and I'm going to cut it. Be careful not to cut any of your loops or anything. And there she is. So by tightening it right up, I force that bun to close, and it's pretty cute in the front too. I kind of like it a little bit loose, so you can, you know, pull some of these back a bit from being so tight in there. You can rearrange some of them, but I think overall it turned out pretty darn cute. Yeah, the other thing I did was I added a little bow in her hair there, and I think I'll do the same. I just do my bows with the two rabbit ears and cross them and make the bow. I find you always get the tails are down at the bottom when you do it that way, and that's the way I think most people like their bows. You get to fiddle with the size of the bow and get it just right, and then we can put that in her hair. I did sort of a double bow with the other one, so I just basically brought these ones up and did something similar to like what I did with my those little ribbon butterflies that I made, but in this case I'm just doing like a double bow. I think I'll do that again. So I have these tails folded up this way, and this one needs to be twisted a bit, and then I'm going to wrap. Let me see, what do I want to wrap around there? I usually have some embroidery floss or something handy on my desk, but Right now my desk is a disaster area and I can't see anything on it. Maybe what I'll do is just wrap some thread around it, and then I'll find a little flower to put in it like I did the other one. So I think a double piece of thread is a good idea, but don't take anything too small because you get wrapping and then you can't have nothing left to tie with. So leave a bit hanging down and just wrap really tightly around the center of this bow to hold in your other tails, and then tie it to the piece that you left. I'm probably not on camera. I can't tell, guys. I'm sorry. I'll move it. Move my head. I've just wrapped it around really tightly and I'm just tying it at the back. If I can get my finger out of the way. And all right, so now we should have like a double bow, which we do. And then we have these tails too, which we don't want. So just like with the little butterflies, ribbon butterflies that I was making on my last design team project, I just trimmed that off. Now you have a little butterfly or a little double bow, and that can go in her hair. That will look super cute. Now let's think about where the front of her hair is. It's right here. There's the little part, so we'll want to put that in the front. Let's see what one of these little ribbon roses looks like. I don't like the green ribbons that come on these. I ordered a bunch from China, so I have a whole bag full of them in different colors, but I don't like that green, lime green bow that comes on them. And for the most part, if you're careful, you can cut it off and the whole thing doesn't collapse on you. Sometimes it does, so do be careful if you're going to do that. I'm going to put a dab of glue on the back of here. Put that down on this mat. Just spread it apart. Make sure that it's all glued and not going to fall apart on me. I am going to put a little bit of glue on the back of this bow. I'm going to look again at her face and I'm going to put that right there. Oof. Be really careful you don't get glue on the, if you do, get it off quick, onto the hair. Glue and yarn do not like each other. So that now is sealed on the bottom because I pressed that onto the mat. I'm going to trim that little bit of ribbon off the edge there, round it off a little bit more, and then I'm going to put that in the middle of her little bow and her hair. Now I'm going to put her collar back on. I took it off because it was getting in the way of me doing her hair. It initially was needed, as I said, because it helps you frame her face, and then you can take it off. Back on, and the seam is down the back, and I'm going to attach it into place by putting a little bit of glue right there at the base and just gently pushing that into place. And now I'm going to cut this little nylon tail back because I don't need all of that. And so I just nipped it off, and there's a little spot there. And then we can attach her onto the dress. So here is our beautiful dress. Very solid, by the way, not falling apart. Because of that little bit of glue that you put through the center. And now we can add her head. So again, like this one, I kind of, put it off a little bit to the side. I don't think it looks like you do what you want. But for some reason, and the one in the picture kind of had that too, and I think they did that for a reason, because I think it looks more natural to kind of like see her head in the back. So make sure before you do that, glue that on, that this hasn't twisted around on your desk and it's still sitting there with this at the back, your seam at the back, and then right onto the center of the dress. You want to put that. And just pull on your little collar while you're doing that. And just make sure that her head is locked on. There she is. Now, I put a big bow around her neck with a bling, and I do like that. So I am going to do the same. And with this one, I have this silver, I have a big roll of it, and I've had this in my stash. So again, make the bow, and then that will go in there in her neckline. And put some glue on there and put that in. So now we're going to finish her shoes. Now, as you can see, I've done one already. Okay, hi guys. So this is the next day, and I was editing the video, and I noticed that when I did the feet, I unfortunately was off the camera. So I'm coming back just to redo this part of the video, and then I will insert it. So you might notice that I'm wearing a different sweater. And yeah, so I'm just gonna make this work. As you've seen, I have done finished one already, and I'm just going to show you how I did that. So what you want to do is you want to take your ribbon and feed it onto your bead. And if you're using a bead with a really small hole, then you may need to use a needle or something to get this through here. And in saying that, this particular hole on this, let's just see if this will go through here. The hole is really small on this wooden bead for some reason, not on the one side, but on the other. So I'm just going to put my ribbon onto a needle that I've checked, and it will fit through here, and that makes it easier to pull it through. Okay, so what you want to do now is you want to put a knot on the end, and I'm just looking, and I think that will be about right. So I'm just going to put a knot at the end here and pull this bead down. And I'm just going to double check that it matches pretty. Yeah, it will. So I'm going to put this right as close to the end as I can. I just use one knot because as I'll show you, I use some glue on the knot to make sure it stays secure and doesn't go anywhere. And for this, I use a glue that I know is going to dry clear. And for me, that's my art glitter glue. So what I do is I put some glue right around the base of that knot. Just push that little bead up, whatever you're using, and just put a little bit of glue at the top of the knot there as well, and then pull it down. And I just leave the end on there right now until that glue dries. And then I know it will be secure. If you have another way that you do knots, then by all means do what works for you. But that's what I know works. So to make the little ruffle that I put on with the tulle above the little bead, I've got a 2-inch wide, so I've used the width, the 6 inches of the tulle, and I've cut it 2 inches wide, and I'm going to fold it over. I am using the pink sparkle tool over the shoes as I did the first doll, just because I kind of like it with the pink ribbon. You use what you have. You can also use, you could use little flowers, you could use a piece of fabric or a piece of lace as well for your little cover on your shoes, or maybe you'll choose not to put anything there at all. That's perfectly fine too. So raw edges together so that now this is going to be folded over and go from 2 inches wide down to 1 inch wide. I do find I can manage a small piece of tulle like this without pinning the raw edges. So I don't bother taking the time to pin them, but just make sure that when you are stitching this, you are catching both the raw edges, especially with these little shoes, because if it's not all gathered on there and it pulls down off your needle, it's not going to look very nice around the shoe. So that's all gathered up on there. I'll just pull my needle through snip my needle off, and now I have this little gathered piece, and I'm just going to tie that around the top of the shoe. Sometimes doing tutorials is a bit of a nightmare because I know because I moved this, I'm probably off camera again, but now I think I'm back on. Yep. Okay. So just take it around over the top of that little wooden bead or bowl, whatever you choose to use. Tighten it up. She's pulling away from me. Just like a child. She doesn't want her shoes done up. So let's just get this nice and tight on here and snip that off. And then I'm gonna adjust the gathers because tulle is really easy to overlap, and then I'm gonna spin it, and it spins really easy. So now that is all ready, and you can see she's got 2 little shoes, and I'm just gonna check to make sure that their legs are coming down from underneath her skirt in facing the right way before I do the final thing, and that's glue the little bow on. And I've picked these little bows this time. They're little acrylic ones again, a little bit different than the other ones. So I thought I'd use these ones this time. And all I want to do is put a little bit of glue right there. And then I want to push the acrylic bow into the tulle and then in onto the ribbon. So you want to you're securing that all together with the little bow. And even if you were to tie a bow out of a ribbon, do the same thing. Push it onto the tulle, attaching the tulle at that point onto the ribbon. And then it's nice, now it's nice and secure. And just to do one added little touch, go in under the tulle here, put a tiny dot of glue. If you don't use hot glue, you're gonna probably have to use like a quick drying glue, and you're doing the same thing. I use hot glue for just about everything. So there's your little feet. And now this is pretty much dry, although you can still see the glue on it. So it's still drying, but I'm gonna cut that right off tight at the knot. And this one is a little bit bigger than the other, but hey, we're all unique, and sometimes one of our feet is bigger than the other, although you don't really see it because the knot gets hidden under the tulle, as you can see. So there she is, ladies. There's her feet all done, looking cute in her little bowed shoes. There she is with her sister. I wonder if you can see the two of them. Let's see if I can get them both on camera with their little feet. And they're super cute sitting up on a shelf. I'll take a picture of the two of them together sitting on the shelf here so that you can see them, because their little legs dangle down and they look super cute. They don't sit, you know, everything doesn't sit perfectly when they're like this because the little shoes get caught. Well, let's see. Oh yeah, you can see them, not too bad. Let me see, can I find one of those sparkly things? Those are from Angel Dream Crafts. I have a bigger one, but I want one of the smaller ones, and I know I have some left. Don't you know whenever you want something, that's not when you can find it? Oh, here they are. I had them on my table and I threw my cloth over them. So it's just this little heart, little sparkly heart. She's got one in her bow, and I'm going to put one in the center of the bow at her neckline on this little girl too. So she's going to have one as well. So there they are, ladies. I hope that was helpful. There they are. They're super cute. This one is slightly bigger. Her dimensions on her some of her skirt layers are a little bit bigger, but I don't think, like, that's how they're going to be. And of course her hair is different than the other one. She's more pink, and the other one is white with pink. And let's have a look, see how much you can see them. I'll just tip them back. There they are. Oh, they're super cute. So I hope that when I get this video all put together for you guys, it will be 2 parts. You will have lots of fun making your own. I just call them cupcake dolls because they just, when they're sitting there with all these layers and then this cute little topping on top, doesn't it remind you of a cupcake? Somehow it just does to me. So there they are. And I hope you guys have lots of fun making your own cupcake dolls. Talk to you soon. Bye for now.